Well, welcome. This is my second video. This is Sam Drake. I know some people have waited for it. Some may be seeing me for the first time. I'm a Christian, first of all. Today is 100 years after the armistice was signed for World War I. 100 years ago, my grandfather, in this tiny diary that he carried throughout World War I, has words that are very, very important for today. There's no elaborate introduction, no flashy electronics. I just have a message from my grandfather, and after serving in several World War I battles, being wounded, returning to battle, and surviving to return to a different America in the early 1900s, I want to speak his words. It's intriguing how his 100-year-old words sound so similar as America today. This isn't a history lesson exactly. It's a grandson reading part of a tiny diary he kept in his pocket during the battles. He never spoke of his experiences. He died when I was 9. And I never knew he was wounded. I saw that he had some scars. I never saw his legs, that he suffered a lot of problems with his legs and feet from the trenches. But nonetheless, I'm extremely proud of what I found in his diary. It was nearly discarded after my dad died in 2010, and we went through a lot of papers. This, easy to miss, was in a pile of trash, and I went through the trash and I found it, and I opened it, and I was shocked. It's not in depth, not in detail. It does list battles that he was involved in. His best friend died in his arms in a trench, and that was during Chateau Thierry. Excuse me if I mispronounce any words. I've done some background history, but again, I'm not going to get into all of that. He said it was difficult to read because he wrote with a pencil in this little diary, and being born in the 1800s, and the people that wrote, if you notice their cursive writing back in that day, into the early 1900s, had very fluent, very smooth writing, and his writing a lot of times is hard to read. So what I have is what I have, and I've copied it as true to form as I can. Now he mentions action in, now excuse me again, Lorraine, Champagne. I have to look a little closer. Well, Chateau Thierry, Saint-Mignon, Argonne Hill, 288 for one, and then he says Germany, and he does list some of the people that died along with one of his friends. I have the flag that was presented at his death at the cemetery, as they do with veterans, and I'm very proud to have that. I also have his uniform. I've got his trunk. I have several things that I've had offers people want to buy and not going there. At the end of this tiny little diary, writes his thoughts, and that's really what I want to get to. Please listen. He was 22 years old when he wrote this, and this was again November 8th, 2018 when he wrote this, and we have similar division that he talks about, but it spreads more quickly now due to social media. Anyway, let me read his I don't call it a rant at the end, but in today's nomenclature it would be called a rant, because you're expressing your opinion, very opinionated. Here's how it starts. This concludes the history. I, for one, am an American fighting with regret. Have been an American fighting with regrets. Excuse me. Now we return. We find America in a turmoil and uproar about first this and then that, and many other things that mar the happiness and welfare of our country. Now, friends, just before we left France, we were made a promise by some men of authority that these things would never to be. But that is all we find. Now, friends, as if our president hasn't had enough to do and worked hard enough, we have men going over the country saying he hasn't done anything. And these were the very men who made personal calls at our camp on Long Island and swore they were with us in everything we did, and swore to do everything in their power to make our country a peaceful and prosperous nation to live in. Now, we're going to let those men betray our lads who sleep over there. These boys who trusted and freely laid down their lives for their country that he's working for. I like that part of our Constitution where it says, a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. But I'd like it better if it was of Americans, for Americans, and by Americans. That's pretty strong. And if everyone didn't learn to speak American, then send him back to the country that he is working for. Now, friends, in closing, I have two pleas I want to make. We've been at some experience in coming here, and while we charge no admission, we would appreciate anything you would like to give. And he adds this, Chaplain Rob, who in one of the battles was wounded along with other men and stayed with his unit, by the way. Chaplain Rob has written a history of the Republic, which takes it from the time it was called out in 1917 to where it was demobilized this year, 10/18/1918. And then he put etc., etc., etc. And that's the end of what he wrote. He was shocked when he came back from the trench warfares and saw our country divided. Our great nation must unite once again against the unconstitutional agenda of Antifa, socialism, fascism, communism. Americans attacking other Americans must stop. It proves nothing. Stop. This divisiveness must stop. This is the land of the free. And if you want to change our Constitution and liberties, as my grandfather wrote, send him back to the country he is working for. Please pray for our country, our president, our hero veterans, our active military, our first responders and law enforcement. pray for these channels that the internet are blocking and banning now. And God bless you for listening. Spread this video, please, if you find it worthy. And this is Sam Drake, a proud American patriot. I love you all. God bless America.